Hey, ladies. Happy Friday evening. Hope everyone is doing well. I hope you had a good week. I have had a great week, had a busy week working on a couple of things within my job, but things have been pretty good. Yes, this is a surprise live. There was something that was discussed during my session with Victoria last week that I wanted to kind of circle back around and talk about a bit more because there's been also some other things that have been happening within the Black women's space, and I wanted to kind of hone in on some of that. And then there are some other um, trending topics that I just kind of want to come and talk with you ladies about tonight. So while you are coming in, please hit the like button. Please hit the like button and share the live stream if there is something that is said in here that uh, you think is beneficial for people. So the first thing that I want to talk about tonight is extreme divestment. It is a term that I just heard this past week. I will be calling names of certain YouTubers because I feel like I'm able to do that. We're still small enough here, and I think it's important for me to name certain YouTubers. So the first YouTuber I'm naming, though, is myself with regards to this because on Sunday, we were having a discussion about paying off debt and getting our credit repaired. And Victoria, who was my guest, made some comments about networking and things like that, and an experience that she had with a Black man. And there were a couple of comments within um, our chat saying, hey, I don't want to engage with Black men and things like that. I will admit I'm not a divester, but I will say this as well. I understand divestment. I understand the concerns. I understand, especially if you live in an impoverished neighborhood, why you would have that point of view. I also understand that some of you, are of a certain age. And if you say certain things to men that they, especially Black men, that they tend to hit on you and not be able to take no for an answer. Your personal safety is always the very first thing that's important to me. The safety of your children is always what's important to me. So I would never swat away your concerns with regards to how you're interacting with Black men. I listen and have listened for the past probably 9 months to Divested Zealot. I did not grow up in poverty. Um, I wanted to understand a little bit better some of the concerns that I was hearing from Black women about their physical safety. You will never see me in a DZ chat. You will never see me on a DZ panel. You will never see me commenting on DZ's platform, but I listened. I also have been listening to Simply Stephanie. In fact, Stephanie was the very first person that I reached out to in the BWE space. And I know that Stephanie and DZ have a history. I'm not here to get in the middle of that. I am here to say that I understand the concerns that you have. Um, I want to kind of replay a little bit of my conversation with Victoria. I want to talk a little bit about extreme divestment. I am not here to judge anybody with regards to that. I want you to feel like this is a safe space for you to express your concerns. We don't blackmail bash here, but if you have concerns, definitely being able to voice those is important because as upwardly mobile Black women, you know, everything counts. That's why we talk about politics on this channel. We talk about social skills. We talk about the business of marriage because all of that counts with regards to our ability to build wealth and secure wealth and pass down generational wealth. So, hey, D'Ambrosia, good evening. And in fact, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put the StreamYard link into the chat, because if anybody wants to come up and talk about anything we're talking about tonight, we're going to have a few topics tonight, but you are able to do so. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of go back to the discussion that I was having with Victoria, play a couple of minutes of it in order to catch everybody up, and then make some comments with regards to extreme divestment. So everybody, this is the conversation I had with Victoria and a story that she shared with regards to how she does some networking and the comments that we had with the chat.
Tell yourself that you are going to meet 5 people that night. Give yourself a pep talk to get into these rooms, because half the time that's all you got to do is just get the nerve to do it. And I'm sorry, I feel like I'm going way off topic, but it's like, because we have been indoctrinated that we don't belong in certain places. And I'm like, no, y'all, what it is your energy doesn't belong in that room. It's not you. It's just if I walk into a room, I'm talking to people and asking questions, because your average person doesn't get questions asked to them. Your average person doesn't actually get a compliment.
Yeah,
That's
especially men. I heard that, especially men. Yeah, I read that.
They
that
don't.
The average man doesn't really get very many compliments. First thing I want to say is, at this point, I wasn't even thinking Black men or just Black men. I was just talking about men, period. Your white men, your Asian men, your Hispanic men. Men in general do not get comments. So they don't get compliments. A lot of people don't speak to them first, etc. So let's continue listening to this. And I want to clarify some of my thoughts with regards to divestment. And again, as people are coming in, please like the video, but know that your safety is of primary concern to me. So we are going to have a little bit of a discussion about extreme divestment tonight, and then we're going to have some other topics as well. Over the course of their lifetime, I think the study was. So yeah, so even telling a guy you like his tie or you like his,
Let's give them game real fast, because I think Goddess Athena might have been in a conversation I was having about that.
All right.
I will never forget. This man was walking down the street, and it was a Black guy, and I looked at him and I said, "Oh my God, wait a minute, stop." I was like, wait, the wind just kind of moved your jacket a little bit, and the inside of that jacket is amazing. And he looked at me like, huh? And I said, bro, the inside of that jacket and the buttons on the jacket, I complimented him on both of those things. He literally melted like butter when I'd said that. And I thought, oh my God, he must not get compliments ever. But I'm like, bro, you wore the jacket because you wanted to show that you are unique, you're different. And I want to show you speaking to the right audience. Like, brother, you did that with that jacket, right? And it wasn't sexual, y'all. It wasn't pushing up on him.
Yeah, because Rose is asking.
No, it was just, brother, I see you. Wow. You know what I mean? And I'm that kind of person. Like, if you have something that just strikes me, I am going to focus on that, because I know you wanted somebody to see it. I know that. But again, I'm kind of goofy like that. Like, I'm squirrel. That's me. Right? If I see it, I'm going to say something. And once you all can get out of that box that you're in, first of all, recognize that you're in a box. Be honest with yourself. And then like I said, it's okay, y'all. Be random. Try different things when you go out to places. Like Goddess knows, I told her, when I wear a ring on this finger and I sit at the bar by myself, more men come up to me. I don't know what that is, but I
guess men are just, if they see if you have a ring on your finger, that they think they have a better shot, at you. So they think you're more approachable.
That's what I'm saying. We're not going to have that full conversation here, but if you just tweak some of what you do, it changes the whole game, because women are used to being complimented all the time, but it's the men that really aren't used to it. And I'm sorry, guys, if you compliment the right guy, you might end up in a business meeting or a business deal that you never saw coming.
Yeah,
so get into the rooms.
So Stephanie, I can understand that at certain times it may be dangerous. It does. So Stephanie came into the chat. I love Stephanie very much. She says, "Yeah, I'm not doing that with them. It's dangerous." That was her comment, and this was my response to her. So let's pull this back just a bit here for a second, because this goes into our divestment conversation. Again, for everybody who's coming in, I just want to clarify that I understand divestment. I understand safety concerns. We're going to have some discussions about that tonight, because this whole week, I felt like I needed to come and clarify with my audience with regards to um, you being safe as you were networking. So uh, let's continue listening to what is happening here. This is again what we talked about on Sunday in our Pay Off Your Debt session with Victoria, the credit solutionist. Stephanie, I can understand that at certain times it may be dangerous. It does depend on, like, in my opinion, the neighborhood that you're. I was going to say the neighborhood that you're in and the circumstances.
Mhm.
So, I mean, but if we are at a networking event or something like that, then we can definitely do that. But you're saying you understand the advice. Yeah, I think it depends on the circumstance. So I know that
Yeah.
Stephanie Victoria, Stephanie is very much into Black femicide and um, some of the harms that are happening with Black
Mhm.
women, and that's the reason why she's saying this. So I definitely wanted to acknowledge her with. Okay, so I just wanted to show that again, and it turns out the credit solutionist is here. Victoria is in the building. Hello, Mokomami. Hello, hello. So let's talk a little bit about extreme divestment. I'm not afraid to name names tonight. I'm going to name some YouTubers during this conversation. The link is in the chat if you want to come up to talk about this or any of my other topics that I have this evening. I am here to say that I understood the concern, because after I made that comment, somebody else put into the chat that even in the suburbs that we as Black women are in danger. So I felt like it was important for me. It really touched me so much that we did that show on Sunday, and on Friday evening, I felt it was important for me to come and talk about divestment, quote unquote extreme divestment. There was a talk between Divested Zealot and Chrissy. I didn't even know Chrissy did a live about extreme divestment until Divested Zealot mentioned it. Yeah, I'm calling out names only because I think it's important for you to kind of know where I'm getting some of this stuff from. Um, so the first thing is, oh, I see some people here, got an unknown here. Complimenting may be better at a conference than on the subway. Yes, absolutely. So, one of the things we talked about was it depends on where you are, who the person is, what you're doing. When I'm listening to Divested Zealot, I'm hearing two different things happening. First is your movements in an impoverished neighborhood. Normally I call it the hood, but today I'm calling it an impoverished neighborhood, right? Versus what's happening in the suburbs with our safety. In an impoverished neighborhood, you are absolutely right. I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not complimenting anybody. I'm getting from point A to point B to point C if I'm there at all. I am with you 1,000%. And I believe that a good part of the time, those are the situations that DZ is actually bringing up in her news stories. The other part of the time, however, is in the suburbs. In the suburbs, from what I'm seeing, with women and children getting unalived in the suburbs, it is usually a husband, a boyfriend, a family member, a son, somebody like that. It is usually not you walking down the street, you see a guy in a multicultural middle-class environment, you see a Black man in a multicultural middle-class environment, you say hello to him in the safe way, and he pews on you, or he bites your eye out like that poor unfortunate woman in New York. It is usually people that you bring into your home, which is why I am always, always cautious in having the discussion with you about the men that you bring into your home. Yes, this past week, the University of Michigan had that horrible incident, and it was a Black man that's the suspect of that. But that's rare. That's rare. And I felt it was very important for us to have this conversation. Again, the link is in the chat. If you disagree with me, if you feel like you want to add something else, I'm going to read these comments here. I do think it's important for us to talk about DV, and I have to use that terminology here, DV, because they don't let us have that terminology on YouTube. I don't agree with well, there are certain things that Cynthia says that I disagree with, but the one thing that she talks about, the standards, boundaries, and expectations, that is correct. That is correct. I'm going to tell you two stories with regards to DVing, one with me and one with somebody that I know. With me, I am very sensitive to any hint of DV on a man. And I believe in most situations, I could be very wrong on this. I believe in most situations, there are hints of issues that come out before you end up like Ike and Tina in the back of a limousine. I believe I could be totally wrong. I'm saying most of the time, not 100% of the time. I dated this guy once. He had road rage for just absolutely no reason whatsoever. And I'm like, that's kind of weird, but I let it go. I let it go. I was trying to be soft. I was trying to be feminine. I was trying to be understanding. And one day he hit my hand. I didn't wait for him to hit my face. I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. In the suburbs, if we're looking at a lot of the stories that DZ has with regards to our children, it's bringing men in the home with our children. It's bringing men in the home with us and not having certain boundaries in place to protect ourselves in these scenarios. From what I'm seeing on DZ's channel, it's not just a man pops off just all of a sudden one day. There are things that are happening before that final blow up that he has that unalives a Black woman. The second story that I have is a friend of mine. Talking to her, she, got divorced. She has 13-year-old twins, and she met this guy and they're dating. And how are things going? She tells me he's hitting walls, punching walls. I said, you need to leave. She told me she was lonely. Sometimes when it comes to these topics, when it comes to the concerns we have with the violence against Black women and Black children, it is because we are not practicing the boundaries in the interpersonal relationships. Now, again, for everybody who's new here, because there are people coming in, I am talking about in the suburbs. In impoverished areas, yes, I completely understand where you keep your head down. You all know I am the first person to tell you that the best thing you can do is get your money up, get your skills up, get a tech cert, whatever you have to do in order to move out of those impoverished neighborhoods. But once you get into the suburbs, once you get into, going to conferences like Afrotech, for example, or other types of events with Black men. If you still feel like you need to divest from all of that, I completely understand. I'll never ever put your safety at risk. I'm just saying, personally, I don't fear those situations. And again, if you have a different perspective, the link is in the chat for you. Definitely come up. You know, I'm here to be educated as well. But these are the things that I have been seeing between Stephanie's channel and DZ's channel that I'm kind of honing in on. These are some of the patterns that I'm seeing. So D'Ambrosia is saying Victoria Mokamami. Hey, Beulah. Computer and Coin is in the house. Mokamami saying it's a touchy subject. There are followers of some platforms can be dangerous and doxing. They can, which is, I'm like, I have my full name out here. Y'all know my government name and everything. And yet I still felt like it's important for me to have these conversations and for us to be educated. I have a lot of young women who watch this channel, and I feel it's important for me to say certain things as Auntie Cherie, you know. Excuse the dog. Happy belated Valentine's Day. So yes, please like the video as you are coming in. That said, there's been this Black male banker who unalived his colleague after he was rejected romantically. Exactly. It's usually something with regards to an interpersonal relationship. So that is why I will never say, just full on, you all should be talking to everybody, give every man a chance, give every Black man a chance. I would never, ever say that. I would never. Victoria says situational awareness, and she's absolutely right about that. If you need to get a restraining order, if you need to change jobs, this is why we say have a network of people, have your money saved, because if you need to make a break for it, practice your Second Amendment, ladies. If you need to make a break for it, you need to make a break for it. So Beulah saying, I'm not offended. I work in a male-dominated industry. Okay. Yeah, Victoria, credit solutionist or solutionist experience, sorry, is saying there's always a sign. I think there is. It is good to be quick to let go of men who look like a DV risk. I don't like a road rage or men who use four-letter words on the daily. Absolutely, exactly. Men who get angry at the drop of a dime at other people, eventually that anger is going to come back at you. Even backhanded compliments can indicate he is feeling something other than gentle for you. Absolutely. That's absolutely the case. If a man makes less money than you, you need to keep your eyes open. There are a lot of men who can't handle that. There are a lot of men who feel like if you just say something to them that is contrary to what you believe, or if you say something that's contrary to what they believe, that you are being antagonistic to them. There was a time I had to almost leave a job because a man he threatened me. And I had to go to my boss and say, he goes or I go. But guess what I had? I had savings, fortunately, praise God. And I lived with family. So I was able to make that move because I said to family, I don't feel comfortable working around this man. This is why I'm so emphatic about us doing conversations and having conversations where we're talking about you getting out of debt. We're talking about you owning your home outright, if possible. We're talking about you having enough in savings so that you can make a move. A lot of us are stuck in situations because we have too much debt. I'm speaking as myself as well. We don't have enough savings. And if things pop off, we cannot make a move. We can't physically make a move. It's so important for us to get our money together, to get our resources together, to get our networks together. You're saying here, I found that men who love bomb are emotionally unstable because, but women see the bombing as charm. Exactly. Exactly. And I'm not the person to tell you how to date in 2023. I'm not. I don't even have a recommendation for you. I do believe that if you're going to have children, the best way to do it is in a marriage. The statistics prove that out. It's better in a healthy marriage, I should say, in a healthy marriage. The most financial decision you will ever make is who you have kids with. So, we do talk about the business of marriage on this channel. It's important. We don't spend all our time talking about relationships. We don't even spend a lot of time talking about relationships on this channel. But it is important that if you're a young woman, you want to have kids, that's done in marriage. But it has to be a healthy marriage, because a healthy marriage is physically healthy, mentally healthy, spiritually healthy, financially healthy. A great marriage actually multiplies your wealth. It positions your children to be nepo babies. It positions you to be able to pass on generational wealth, to break the poverty curses within the Black community. And the worst thing you can have is a bad marriage. The worst thing. So, those are my comments with regards to divestment, extreme divestment, being careful who you bring into your home. If you already have children, being careful who you bring around your daughters and your sons. Nyla posted something earlier today of a beautiful 12-year-old girl who was arred and killed by her mother's boyfriend. It broke my heart. It broke my heart. That baby, she was a baby. She was 12. Nyla posted her picture. If you say to me, Cherie, I'm not bringing any men around my kids until they're out of the house, I completely understand. I get it. Romance novels and movies present love bombing and men with issues. Hold on, Mocha Mommy, I'll be right with you. As romance, which is not educational for young girls. It isn't. And definitely like the stream ladies. And you say no kids. I think you mean no harming kids. So, Mocha Mommy, hi.
Hello, how you doing?
A little nervous because, but these are things that I had to say.
Right,
How are you?
good. I
Good.
think the conversation about the extremism,
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of it, the suppressive talking points is because so many content creators have been doxxed as a result.
Mm-hmm.
So, like when bringing things up, and I know that there were videos that I had to take down because it was just too, and it was around the subject of sort of like what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We have these key catchphrases like resting in femininity.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to like make sure that I was giving people good information, because a lot of times if you have a spouse who's a high achiever, then your children become high achievers, whether that be nature or nurture. And
Mm-hmm.
you're not doing a lot of resting. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you have high achieving, if your children have been around a high achiever and that high achiever is a hands-on dad, that high achiever has a competitive nature to them, your kids inherit that.
Mm-hmm.
So, my kids, were high achievers. And so that meant a lot of sports, that meant a lot of advanced classes. And as the mother, you're putting a lot of effort in.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
I know you work really hard in order to make sure your kids are, competitive. And we talk about that on the channel. Yeah. And I know that you work, like I said, very hard on that.
right. And I just remember having a discussion like around like 10th or 11th grade with my oldest one, how I just was not able to help her with her homework at that point.
Mm-hmm.
She had wanted to go a fine arts path, and a lot of it had to do with technology that I had never been exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order for her to get like academic support, you're having to pay out of pocket for that.
And that takes
And
resources.
yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that she, that we were both supportive of her in those goals. And now to come to find out later on, she wants to change her mind and do something else. But that's what parenthood is.
It is. Look, when I will tell y'all the funniest story. When I first went to college, I came to the DC area initially because I thought I wanted to get into politics. I took one semester of politics and I discovered I didn't like politicians. But my father, may he rest in peace, said, "Well, you got 4 years to graduate. I'm not paying for a fifth, sixth, or seventh." I made sure, made sure to change my major to something else and graduate in 4 years, but that's what it takes.
Yeah.
It
So
took
she
dad.
didn't like
Yeah.
um, the fact that the paychecks weren't steady or that the
Yeah.
income wasn't reliable and
Mhm.
how you have to finance so much of your own artwork. And then sometimes you don't
Mhm.
always, and you come up with a portfolio, spend all this money, show it to someone, and then not buy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she just
Yeah,
decided
with
to,
fine arts, but I mean, she can always, if she likes artistic work, there's always, business graphic artists and
right,
and things like that. So even going into not necessarily Hollywood, but film production and things like that,
right,
there's people who make very good money, and now it's not just in California anymore. Now there are a lot of people who are living all over the world and doing things within motion graphics, especially with the AI that's out
right.
there. Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So she decided to she's like, there's like a whole business side about um, when it comes to like marketing art and
Mhm.
patroning art, like especially with things like copywritings and things like that. So she was like, she got more interested in the business side of the art industry,
That's
which,
good for her.
yeah. But,
Mhm.
as I was talking about it, I was kind of talking about like art camps, sports tournaments, things like that. And then that's kind of when like the extreme part of the algorithm started kind of coming at me. And
Mm.
also too, when it was around like the death of DMX, that when
Yeah.
I was talking about how addiction and Black families and how sometimes we have like codependent behavior as a result of being around addiction, or sometimes we have a codependent family dynamic because
Mhm.
addiction was present, and how people need to really start. And I guess people saw it as something else, like that was caping or something. And that wasn't really the case. It was just really about like starting the conversation about, maybe this is where some of your poor behavior comes from. Maybe this is some of the codependent behavior you might be used to, and you might need to examine that.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to level up and get therapy, but you also have to make sure you bring those issues up when you go to therapy. And yeah,
Yeah.
that ended up not being so great for me and my platform. Um, you
I'm
know,
glad you said that.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I've been watching some of the other divested, content, and like I said, I don't comment in anybody's, like, anywhere, you know? So, but I have been listening. Some things make me cringe, I'll admit. Some things I'm like, "Ooh, that's even a bridge too far for me." I've seen, 2 content creators, but one in particular I could think of where I was like, "Even that is extreme," you know? Um, but one of the things I believe is you can't save everybody, and I actually have a live stream that's gonna come up at some point called "You Can't Save Anybody." You may not be able to save anybody, it's time to burn the cave, and, um, when you have certain family members, the hardest thing to do is let those people go. So one of the things that I think is important is not to even open the door with some of these relationships. Um, Moving with extreme caution. And I have to admit this, ladies, and I think DZ mentions this as well. Don't think just because he's white that he's going to be a good, that none of this stuff is going to come up. Like, vet everybody. Um, it's so important. Um, so, yeah.
yeah. But as far as like the whole situation with nepo babies and
Hmm.
connections and things like that, I'm starting to notice, and it's hard on my youngest daughter who is noticing it too. Like if your dad played for the MLB or your dad played for certain schools, even if you're not as good, you still have opportunities that other girls may not have. So
It
because of
makes sense. So that's why I always say that who you select, is so important.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it came to the point where people were like, her talent's undeniable, but you know, is this school interested in me for me, or do they think that my dad and my godfather are going to be in the stands and that will help them sell tickets? You know,
It
that,
could be both. I mean, like, when we think of, who was the guy that just left the HBCU to go to Colorado? Deion
yeah,
Sanders,
that's true.
Y this goes hand in hand. Or, Dr. Dre dropping $70 million at, I think it was USC, and his daughter, getting in to, this top tier school. So it's probably a bit of both. Um,
Right. But that's very hard to explain to a 17-year-old, when a
yeah,
lot
I
of this
bet.
is like your ego and
Mhm.
your
I think
pride.
I'm so good. Yeah.
And I feel like teenage girls care more what people say.
I think a lot of women care what people say. I think that is why, we have so many 40, 50-year-old women flaunting their rings on YouTube. Be real. I'm married. I'm married. You're not. Where's your husband? You know? Um, I think a lot of women care what people think.
Yeah. And
And it
it's,
can sometimes get people put in the ground or seriously hurt trying to keep up. When we talk about keeping up with the Joneses, it's not just money, it's appearances too.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Beulah's saying your avatar is gorgeous. So, want to give you that shout out. I have a couple of other topics I'm going to talk about tonight, Mokomami. You're always welcome to stay up if you want, but I was going to go to the next
Thank you.
topic. Okay, ladies, let's talk about the MRS degree, the Mrs. degree. So, um, there was a TikTok that was floating around, and our other topics. Well, we have a couple of heavier topics, but these next two topics are a little bit lighter for the evening. There was a TikTok floating around with these young ladies. Let's see, where is Oh, I probably have it over here because I didn't want to share the music. So these are the young ladies, and they are showing off their rings at graduation. They're graduating as education majors. They've got their rings, and there ended up being a topic and a discussion with regards to why young Black women are not getting MRS degrees. And my unpopular opinion may actually surprise some people, but it's actually backed by data as well. I'm interested in hearing what Mokomami has to say. So, this was the article with regards to bringing up this TikTok here. Why aren't college educated Black women meeting their match? We're not going to read it all, but I'm going to read a couple of comments in here saying that TikTok sparked a conversation online about the pressure of young women at Southern colleges and universities to get engaged before graduation. The phenomenon has many names, but most commonly is trademarked as ring by spring or obtaining your MRS degree. When I was young, it was the MRS degree. So I had never heard of ring by spring, but that makes sense. It isn't comparable to the experience of college educated Black women who are 53% less likely to marry a well educated man than our white counterparts. And I think there was one other thing down here. Yeah. Now, this is saying a hostile dating environment. This is where the article lost me, but I have an unpopular opinion about this. While Black women have the lowest rates of dating across race lines, predominantly white institutions don't necessarily create an an inviting environment for those who are open to pursuing love outside their race. Um, I don't know what kind of inviting environment you're looking for. But then the next paragraph says here, Black women often don't feel comfortable or welcome in what is a pervasive romantic scene, which is the hookup scene, the parties, drinking, fraternities. Those are often white men's territory on campus. If we're talking about MRS degrees to this author, why are we talking about the hookup scene at college? That was my issue number one. But here's my real unpopular opinion. And when Crystalline and Themis had this conversation, maybe I missed it because it was super long live. I was kind of in and out. But they didn't mention the fact that 60% of couples who are married between the ages of 20 to 25 end up in divorce. This is my unpopular opinion, and then I will definitely be interested in hearing Mocha Mommy's thought process. Why are we encouraging 21-year-old Black women, because I'll call them women at that point, to get married? Now, socializing in college, I get. Definitely, if you're a young lady, socialize in college, date in college, not for hookups, but just date. Yes. But encouraging 21-year-old Black women to get married, I can't. I can't go that far. I think that a young lady, after she graduates, she should either live on her own or live with, one or two female roommates who are in a respectful household, and travel, live a little bit, things like that before she gets married. Mocha Mommy, I am interested in what you have to say about the MRS degrees.
Well, I can honestly say that there are some families and some cultures that position their kids to do it. I mean, I know, like, me growing up, like, that's the whole point of doing cotillions or pledging certain 3-letter Greek organizations, because that's what your aunties did, that's what your grandma did, and that's what you do. So there are some people that are just brought up in that tradition. So, but then, I went to an HBCU where we were just outnumbered, we just outnumbered the men like 9-1 at that point in time. This was the 90s. So I can understand, like, why some cultures or some groups of people would impose that, because that's their culture. And so maybe Southern white people, that's their culture. So, so I can't say that that's right or wrong. But as far as, like, Black women are concerned, I know, like, when I was an instructor, I would constantly tell ladies, like, hey, you want to keep in contact with the guys you're in class with, because as you get older, your social circle may grow, but as they get older, their social circle shrinks, especially, the STEM majors on the community college level. A lot of those guys were going into oil and gas. And I was like, you got to keep in contact, because I guarantee you, when he's being entry level in oil and gas, making good money, doing what he needs to do to work his way up, he's not around a lot of women. So it's a good idea to get his social media contacts and keep in touch. So that's my whole thing. Like, I can't make an observation, make any kind of value judgments on other people's culture, but I do think that laying that groundwork early could only benefit you in the long run, professionally and personally.
Yeah, and I definitely agree to lay the groundwork. So maybe I'm old. I went to a PWI and I never felt excluded from the dating scene and felt it was racist. And why would I want to go to a racist PWI that, leaves me out of the ability to meet people? So I had issues with how this article was positioned, but I really, was kind of very concerned with regards to the advice that was given. But I do believe, I do wholeheartedly agree with you that yes, you should meet young men. You should, get to know them. I was talking with a young lady. Well, she's not young anymore. She has 2 kids now, but she said she met her husband in college, but she didn't marry him until many years later. So,
Right.
yeah. So, um, we have here badass trucking babe. Hello. I think the flaunting of wedding rings is about one upping other women and plain old competition. I'm better than you because I agree. Them dust rings. And then you were talking about positioning daughters. Somebody bought the cow. What about the farmer, though? Oh my goodness, trucking babe. Solutionist experience is saying, I've heard that Black women are told to keep their heads in the books. And look, I was told that to keep your heads in the books and off them boys. Other groups of women are encouraged to lock down a partner and a degree at university. Yeah, it was called double majoring BA and MRS in my day. Yep, in my parents' day, it was. My aunt was so proud when I double majored. She was silent when we got divorced. That's my big concern because you don't really know yourself. And I know that there are a lot of people now, and not just Black men. I'm seeing a lot of white men pushing it as well. Jordan Peterson, Chris Williamson, other white men are pushing for women to get married earlier and have children earlier and have more children, um, to the point where, if you all follow any of these people, I kind of feel like they're being paid to push this,
Yeah.
because it seems like everybody's talking in unison with regards to this. Married at 21 is insane. Yeah. Cotillions were a great part of our culture. Yeah, I didn't have a cotillion, I had a sweet 16, but definitely the cotillions were the elegance, the manners, yeah, the etiquette. And Trucker Baby saying young Black men taught how to socialize with women properly. Yeah, all men were. All men were. But yeah, Black men of a certain social status definitely were at the time. Early marriage ends in divorce far more often, especially under 25. There's more cheating and DV. Yeah, look, especially if you have a 21-year-old young lady married to a 22-year-old young man, oftentimes he's not making enough money in order to support the family. There's financial strains, things like that. If the 21-year-old young lady is married to a 31-year-old man, then you have the 10-year age difference, which my understanding, and my parents were 10 years apart. It, it's very difficult for you to kind of you grew up in different eras and different times, and it's hard for you to kind of come together, with the same um, understanding. Let's just say that. So it's not impossible, but 60%, ladies, that divorce statistic there is, for me, too high. And then they say here, those who wait until they're over 25 years old are 24% less likely to get divorced. So, I just felt like it was important to kind of bring that up. Anything else,
Agreed.
Mokomami, before we go to the next topic?
No, I agree 100%. I was 26, almost 27.
Hmm.
And, we, he had had a whole separate career before we had even met. So it was like he had a lot of like life experience and knew what he wanted, and it was very intentional. And I
Hmm.
think too, like the intentionality is something that needs to be set. And maybe these young men are from cultures where they have like maybe a supportive group. Maybe they're, we're from a culture where, the parents will buy them a house, or
Hmm.
that there's, like a long standing history of marriages, you know what I mean? But that's not most people. So that's why I can't like speculate
Hmm.
if it's right or if it's wrong. But I just know, like, I did have colleagues who did marry young, but almost everybody in their family had been married 40, 50 years, and their parents gave them a house when they got married, or, so
Yeah, it's
again, I
totally
mean,
different. Yeah.
I wish those couples the best. That's all I could say.
Yeah. Well, and again, we were talking specifically, my comments were for young Black women. And, so let's move on then. Let's move on to another topic here. There's this thing called the single tax, quote unquote. There is a singles tax, ladies. People who live alone are paying thousands more on rent than their coupled counterparts. So Of course, they have the Black woman in here, home alone with pizza. I wish they hadn't used this picture, but we'll just call the conspiracy theory the way that it is. It costs to be single. Americans living alone are facing a quote singles tax that costs thousands of dollars. A new Zillow analysis finds on average, a single American living alone pays around $7,000 more on rent in comparison to their cohabitating peers. Ladies, the reason they pay $7,000 more is because they are living alone. And the article admits this. The article admits that if you are cohabitating with somebody, that you will pay less because you're splitting the bills. Couples save tens of thousands of dollars living together, further dividing economic prospects. So, they're saying here that this is a Zillow analysis comparing how much more single Americans are paying to live alone in a one-bedroom place compared to couples in the same spots. The results on average, solo Americans are paying a singles tax of almost $7,000. To find the singles tax, Zillow calculated the annual amount that one person would pay in rent and divided that number in half, which is the additional amount a single person would pay when they do not split that rent with a partner or roommate. Here's my conspiracy theory down here. So this analysis really shows if you are on the fence, maybe you are living alone right now, but dating somebody. Maybe this is your push to say, hey, maybe this year we ought to think about moving in with one another and start saving for our future. Going back to my conspiracy theory, Mocha Mommy, I am seeing a lot of articles like this trying to push couples in together, pushing them to move in together, pushing them to get married, pushing them to have kids. I mean, I, as much of a money person as I am, I would not suggest you move in with a man to save $7,000 a year. Um, and I'm glad they mentioned roommate, but they kind of threw roommate in there. And the whole article is about coupling up with a man in order to reduce your rent. What do you think?
I think that I think it's kind of like a global conspiracy, if you want to say that, because I know like you'll see articles like this in Japan and South Korea, Northern Europe. I mean, I have a girlfriend who lives in Northern Europe. She talks about they see articles like this because like decline in birth rates are declines in economic prosperity of those countries. Like even China and their decline birth rate, even though there's over 1 billion people in that country, being surpassed by India has, in their opinions, like negative economic consequences.
Yeah.
So, when we think about India having 1.6 billion, China have 1.2 billion, America 350 million. So yeah, people are afraid. People are afraid and they need more population. So we're going to see a lot more articles like this. Like as if like the extreme violence is because women are not giving good guys a chance, or the extreme, you know what I mean? Or move in with your boyfriend, or ring by spring. We're going to start seeing this stuff pushed just because of negative economic implications of population decline in developed countries.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge thing that I'm seeing so many people talk about. The algorithms, like you said, are pushing it. Next thing you know, ChatGPT will be pushing it. You'll ask a question about some chemistry homework for your kid, and it'll pop out that, oh, and by the way, you need to get married. So yeah, absolutely, these things are happening. I'm just seeing it so much more and more. And this is Business Insider. The other article I showed was Business Insider, so I'm not reading Cosmo here. I'm reading mainstream business news. I should be talking about stocks and the economy and inflation and things like that. And they're spending a lot of time and resources pumping out these articles
about people's personal lives.
Absolutely. So, and it's not just because that's what readers read and that's what's selling. I honestly, I'm seeing it so much more. Teach My Kinder is saying, honestly, we are good friends now and recognize that we had no business getting married so young. I must say there wasn't pressure to per se, but I guess it just kind of felt like the next step. Good. Well, I'm glad that you all are friends. Hello, Alonzo. Salute. I was going to cover the single tax on live stream. LOL. I concur. It costs a lot. I'd rather pay more than cohabitate. I agree. Peace and no risk of babies out of wedlock. I agree with this. It is easier, and you can go see my girl Victoria at the Solutionist Experience if you need to. It's easier for us to figure out how to help you make an additional $7,000 than for you to have no peace in the house and a baby. It's less expensive too. um, you're saying here they're pushing an agenda. If a man is the right man and you both want to marry and there is security, then great. I agree. Look, if you were going to progress that way anyway, then that's one thing. But yeah, there seems to be this whole thing of let's try to force more people together. So many people will not admit they are with their partner because of the economic advantages. That's very true. Couples who are or stay in relationships to save on rent look so miserable to me. A lot of times they are. It's just like people who stay in marriages because of the economics. I'm not living for the population, I'm living for myself. That keeps you ambitious, though. You will get out there and get that coin to have the life and peace you want. You got to pay the cost to be the boss in life. Very true. I'd actually sooner live with my mom, as at least we take turns cooking without anyone having a nag, but better to have a good job and an apartment just for you. So I had an apartment at one point. I decided that I wanted to buy a house. My mother was getting older. We decided to live together, and it's been great for me. I mean, we have a good relationship. I'm a morning person. She's a night person. We have our ebbs and flows, but I love it. I love the multi-generational living. So,
Yeah,
Mokamami, anything else before we go to the next?
multi-generational living is pretty
Mhm.
common in my husband's culture.
Yeah.
So when my daughter took a gap year, it wasn't that big of a deal.
Hmm.
And then to think about, like when I'm seeing like a lot more of my neighbors doing like granny pods or tiny houses, when on their property, because, they want to have their older family members live with them. I have one good friend, she lives with her 87-year-old grandmother, and she's a
Hmm.
grown woman with a great job, but multi-generational households is just part of that culture. So, and these are Black people too. So I'm saying like, some of these are Black people who have the multi-generational household. So I don't know. I think it's a different way to think about it. Like maybe not a romantic partner, but if you maybe have a older family member who owns some lands and you can put an auxiliary dwelling unit on it, or you can house hack or rent from a family member and help them pay the mortgage, especially those who are on a fixed income.
Yeah.
I think it could only benefit you.
I think it's going to come back even more because affordable housing is such an issue. You have young people who are graduating from college and moving back home. You have older people. Some of these nursing homes, if you don't have long-term care insurance, it's super expensive. I just see that multi-generational living is going to be coming back. It's going to make a big comeback. So the next story, Section 8 not accepted. Ladies, I cannot say this enough. Get your money together, get your coins together. The worst thing you can be going into the next several years in this country is on the system. It's poor. Like figuring out a way for you to get, off Section 8, past Section 8. I'm going to do one story from the tenant's point of view, and I'm going to do the second story from the landlord's point of view, because most of you are upwardly mobile women and you may want to do real estate investing. So I have a couple of videos to show here with regards to Section 8. So let's see.
Section 8 is very much in high demand.
Brian Mullins manages around 100 rental properties. 35 of those are Section 8 eligible.
Personally, I would love to be able to do more Section 8.
But Brian said the process of moving someone with a voucher into a home is slow and costly, leading some landlords to abandon the practice completely. Once landlords find a tenant to move into a unit, they must wait for a housing quality standards inspection, which can take weeks, leaving the home vacant until an inspection is passed.
A lot of people, and I know several property managers that just don't want to do Section 8 anymore because it simply doesn't make financial sense. Because the amount of time it takes for us to place one Section 8 tenant is probably 2 to 3 times the amount of time that it would take a non-Section 8 tenant to move into a property.
The inspection looks to see if the house and its appliances are operating as designed, making sure the unit is safe to live in. But some landlords say these inspections are too tedious, prolonging the move-in process for tenants and leaving the landlord without income for weeks.
The best case scenario is it's going to be 3 weeks after we submit that voucher before they'll even do an inspection to even have an opportunity to sign a lease and to move in.
And if the home does not pass the first inspection,
And we have to fix it and then start the whole 3-week process again to schedule another inspection. Probably 3/4 of the time, we're not passing on the first inspection, even if it's super minor.
where tenants can move into non-Section 8 rentals immediately, Brian said he waits an average of 6 weeks for a tenant to move into one of his units. While he respects the purpose of the inspections, Brian said many of the units fail for reasons that are not safety issues.
The tenant's not able to move in at that point because one little minor thing failed, and so Section 8 stops them from moving in.
Leaders of the Oklahoma Housing Finance Agency, which operates in all 77 counties across Oklahoma, said they are confident they are doing a fair job of putting people in safe, affordable housing. They also said they value their partnership with landlords in the state.
We value our landlord partners 100%. Yes. Without our landlord partners, we would not have a Section 8 housing choice voucher program.
For the agency, it is not the process that is pushing landlords away. Director Deborah Jenkins said property owners could simply get more money by not renting to Section 8 tenants.
So if you know that you can command those rents on the open market, you would much rather just go that route. I look at a unit, I like it, I pay the deposit, and I move in. Where you have all of these other hoops to jump through when you're participating in the Housing Choice Voucher Program.
And the agency has an explanation for the wait times.
We normally schedule 2 weeks out because we've had owners and clients that say, well, I can't get off work or I have a prior commitment and things like that. So we use a 2-week rule to schedule those out.
And also an explanation for why the inspections are so thorough.
I believe when you're listening to the list of items that we're routinely failing units for, they're items that you or I would want to make sure are operable or, exist in a unit that's not being assisted.
In December, the Oklahoma City Housing Authority said they had seen an increase in the number of landlords stepping away from accepting Section 8. But this isn't just happening in the metro. The Oklahoma Housing Finance Agency said this is a trend all across Oklahoma. And without incentives for landlords, finding Section 8 properties could become even more difficult to those with a voucher.
I'm afraid that me and my sister's just going to be homeless, trying to wait for this approval, trying to wait for these Section 8s, these landlords and everything else.
Rebecca Nunez and her sister Eleanor are surrounded by boxes in their apartment. They have 30 days to pack and find a home after having problems with their previous unit.
They have to fill out a form. You have to send it into the company. They have to get a hold of you and the landlord, do a walkthrough, tell the landlord what's wrong, what needs to be fixed. And then about 2 weeks later, they have to redo the walkthrough and see if these things were fixed. And then, you can move in.
Now they're up against the clock, fearing the lengthy inspection process could leave them without a roof over their head.
Yeah, 30 days ain't gonna cut it.
And while landlords say they enjoy offering rentals to those with housing choice vouchers, they say the process is driving them away.
Some of our Section 8 tenants are some of our best tenants. So it's not the people, it's the system to get the people into the unit.
So what's going to happen next here? The Oklahoma Housing Finance Agency said they are always open to feedback from landlords and improving operations within the agency.
Okay, ladies, Section 8 not accepted. First thing I want to say, I know Mocha Mommy has a lot to say, but I want to say The best thing you can do individually and the best thing your family can do is to not be on Section 8. There are a lot of landlord forums that are happening. Small landlords are telling other small landlords not to get into Section 8. I'm going to show you, before Mocha Mommy talks, I'm actually going to show you, I work for a real estate company now, and we had a discussion about Section 8. And it turns out that there are some areas where the source of income, you cannot discriminate against a person based on source of income. So if you're thinking about being a Section 8 landlord, you need to know these things. Also, some realtors and some property managers, depending on how many properties they have, cannot discriminate against Section 8. But a lot of landlords, small mom and pop landlords, as well as the bigger landlords, are figuring out ways to get out of offering Section 8 housing. I know this is a very contentious topic. However, here, there is a map here, and let me see if I can make this a bit smaller so everybody can see. So the things that are in the darkest blue-gray have the statewide SOI laws, and SOI stands for source of income laws. So in dark gray, that means that you cannot discriminate against somebody based on them having a Section 8 voucher. But in the pinkish, like Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, there is no statewide SOI laws. And then, other states here, like Georgia, Florida, they have no statewide source of income laws. So we've heard, for example, in Atlanta area, they're able to evict people. This is the reason why. In some states, like Virginia, for example, Virginia has, and my company is in Virginia, so that's why they were talking about this. They actually have SOI laws, meaning that unless you are a landlord, this is what they told me, that owns 2 properties or less, you cannot discriminate against somebody with a Section 8 voucher. So Mocha Mommy does not buy it. She feels very passionately about this. So I'm going to open it up to Mocha Mommy.
I'm really glad that the state you showed was Oklahoma, because Oklahoma is a state where a lot of young people from California, Arizona, Texas, who've been priced out of those markets, go. They're really remote worker friendly. And Oklahoma has like a lot of really great incentives for young people to rent there. So if you have somebody coming from Austin who's used to paying $1,200, but you have a Section 8 voucher that's only paying you $680, well, of course you're going to kick them out for that young professional who can pay you more money. So I really think that they're saying that it's the system, but really, I think it's just that the landlords know they can get more money in these up and coming areas like Tulsa, like OKC, like Norman. And I also think that it has to do with a lot of people, like a lot of small landlords like ourselves. Like we had some properties over the quarantine when the rent moratoriums came, we just kind of got rid of them. We sold them to like real estate developers, like those big things like Open Door or Red Door. You know what I mean? You could sell it to them. And those are developers. Those are Wall Street guys, people.
Yeah.
And so just to kind of get rid of the headache. And then we just invested elsewhere because those rent moratoriums, a big corporation can absorb that, but a small person who's maybe using it to supplement their retirement, they can't. So now that can just change the demographics of that entire neighborhood. Like our place around Fort Bliss, it was just usually like military families or working families, but now it's like government contractors because they just bought up whole blocks of military people who were PCSing and leaving, or getting rid of their properties during that moratorium. So yeah, I think it's a conspiracy again. Like again, we're saying all this stuff, but I think it's a conspiracy to raise housing prices and to just get the tenants you want.
Well, I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think that's exactly what they're doing. They're blatantly saying it. And now you have a lot of corporations who are buying single family homes, in order to rent. There are places where they're buying land now and creating houses for a build to rent scenario. Whereas before, you would build the houses in order to have homeowners in there. This country is turning into the haves or the have-nots. Now, people are still, my understanding is you could be on Section 8 and still buy a house. I don't know how to do that. I'm sure there are other people that could explain that to you, depending on where you live. Um, there's the NACA program, which I'm a fan of, and I've spoken with 4 or 5 people who have graduated from NACA. They get their entire down payment paid for and things like that. Um, but Oklahoma, according to this, is the only purple here, which is the statewide source of income law excludes the Section 8 housing voucher program. So that means that they don't have to take Section 8 housing vouchers in Oklahoma. Let's see what a couple of people are saying here. And actually, I have a second video, which goes a little bit to what Mocha Mommy was saying from the moratorium point of view and individuals. So, Legacy, first of all, hey girl, I opted for increasing my income initially to twice my rent, then to cohabitate simply because of money. So, we were talking about that before. Um, Owners are now leaning towards the tax credit program once their Section 8 contracts run out with HUD, much more lucrative in the back end for the owner. And, Victoria, you probably know that bigger pockets in these other forums, like all of these landlords, small and big, are like sharing information about how they're able to maximize their income. Also, they're sharing horror stories with regards to Section 8 and how people are leaving properties as well. So one day I'll show some TikToks on that because it's not good. And it's not everybody, not all, not all, not all. So just being nosy. Hello, welcome. A lot of landlords don't want to do any work on their properties and want people to pay market rate for rundown homes. Regular tenants will take what they can get. Well, I will say this as well. A regular tenant can also demand that the landlord fixes up the property, you know? Um, so we as regular tenants don't have to necessarily just take what we can get. You're considering real estate. You want to be safe when you do it. We'll do another real estate show. I actually have another woman who is coming on the channel to talk because she's an active real estate investor. Natural hair. Hello. A lot of tenants in urban neighborhoods in Atlanta were evicted. I suspect it has something to do with this. I'm trying to make more income still in school. Yes, my dear. Stay in school. Get a very good, lucrative skill. The example shown in this report was horrible. Yeah. Housing authorities I contract with have atrocious paperwork. I can see why owners are shying away from vouchers. Ladies, listen to this. They are losing a lot of money due to erroneous paperwork. Absolutely. Um, Thank you, Mocha Mommy. Thanks for coming up. Let's see here. Pushing for higher birth rate while also using automation to replace human labor. Part of the U.S. never recovered from the exportation of certain industries. So have all of these kids for what? Understand? Yes, no conspiracy. They're doing it blatantly. Yes. Most of my income is going to rent. It's not right, but unfortunately, it's the way that it is. And this is why on this channel we focus so much on, how to level up your income, because I don't think you're gonna be able to make it in this country without it. I think the corporations want everyone to be renters. They do, which is why it's important to buy as quickly as possible. Oklahoma has remote jobs. Yeah, they do. CNBC, I believe, did a report about where those corporations come into planned housing communities and buy up the properties in cash to rent out these homes to their worker employees. As a landlord, you are an investor. You, of course, are wanting the best return for your investment. This is very true. So I want to show you another news story here. And this is about mom and pop landlords. These are people like you and I. I want you to see the other point of view from just regular, everyday people that have a couple of rentals for their for their retirement and see how they got screwed, as Mokamami was talking about during the moratorium.
For the end of the COVID eviction protections for renters here in Los Angeles. The eviction moratorium in the city of LA is now set to expire in a few months, but many landlords say it will take them years to recover from their economic loss, especially small mom and pop landlords. KCAL9's Christine Lazar live in South LA with more on that story. Christine?
Well, on this stretch of street off of Exposition Boulevard is lined with triplexes. I'm told that most of them are owned by small mom and pop landlords. And I spoke with two of them today. One charges less than $900 a month for a one bedroom. But these landlords say they are owed tens of thousands of dollars in back rent, and they don't think they will ever get it back.
I moved in to this area in '83.
And 15 years later, Linda Sam decided to become a landlord, purchasing this triplex in the Crenshaw district. She lives in one unit and rents out the other two. It was a way for her to retire until the pandemic hit and one tenant stopped paying rent.
I don't know why people think that we have so much money because we have this building. I scraped to get this building.
Sam says she received back rent from the state's Housing is Key program, but that only paid her through March. Since then, she says she is out more than $10,000 in rental income while still having to pay her mortgage.
It means having difficulty repairing things. It means not being able to eat decently. It means that now I have to go to the churches to get food.
Earlier this week, the LA City Council voted to end the eviction moratorium.
Isn't that a shame that this woman owns this property and she has to go to the church to get food? Let's hear this again. Because I'm sorry to say this. Sometimes you wonder why people don't accept Section 8. They want to go to like the best neighborhoods with people who are financially stable. This is the reason why. This is the reason why. It's not just greedy corporations, these mom and pop landlords. This Black woman who should be sitting on her couch eating popcorn and looking at Judge Judy has to go and beg the church for food. As a landlord, she's not rich. So the Section 8 issue does have two sides to it. Let's listen to this part again.
Having difficulty repairing things. It means not being able to eat decently. It means that now I have to go to the churches to get food.
Earlier this week, the LA City Council voted to end the eviction moratorium at the end of January, but tenants will have until at least August to start paying back their rent. And rent increases in rent-controlled buildings like Sam's won't be allowed until 2024.
Small mom and pop landlords are facing increased prices due to inflation, just like everyone else.
Diane Robertson is one of the founding members of the Coalition of Small Renter Property Owners. She owns a duplex and a fourplex in South LA, and she says many of her members are looking to sell and cut their losses.
We are very convinced that.
And they're going to sell to these big corporations, everybody. You thought the problem was bad now. Wait until these big corporations get their hands on the majority of rental properties. If you were on Section 8, my suggestion is you figure out a way to get off of Section 8, because this is the affordable housing crisis is about to go from bad to worse. Once these small mom and pop landlords who can look at a family and say, well, you know what? I'm going to give this family a shot. Blackstone and these big corporations will not give a care, and the property managers on the ground will not be able to override anything.
That it's the corporate owners who will be waiting in the wings to buy up these properties, more than likely at reduced prices.
This man owns two triplexes in South LA, and next to him, other small apartments have been leveled and replaced with high-density housing owned by big developers.
I'm ready to just get out of the business.
Taking with him his affordable rents, he charges $860 for a one-bedroom. But with four tenants not paying rent, he says he can't afford to remain a landlord.
The government just don't realize how just the stroke of a pen has just turned my world upside down.
And back out here live, you can see those high density apartment buildings that will have far higher rents looming over the triplexes that I'm standing next to. However, supporters of the eviction moratorium point to our homeless count. It went up 2% from 2020 to 2022, which is far less than it's gone up in the past. They say the reason is because of this eviction moratorium. In South LA, I'm Christine Lazar. Back to you guys in the studio.
Okay, so ladies, I wanted to show you both sides of this Section 8 not accepted. There are a lot of different sides that's happening here. There's the government, there are the people who need properties, there are good families, good mothers with children who need properties. There are small landlords who would like to remain in the business, but they have to get out. They have to get out because either property is being damaged or because they are not getting their rents and they just can't hold on to the properties anymore. And who's coming to take these properties? The big landlords, the Wall Street guys with the deep pockets. With the deep pockets. So you're saying house hacking, shout out to Bigger Pockets. I learned about this from them. So sad that it backfired on this woman due to COVID. Yep. Now he was a good landlord. You won't find that price out here. Yes. Yeah, these big corporations are not going to care. They're not going to care. Did you hear they are getting rid of the IRS? No, I did not hear that. I don't believe it. Sorry, anti-ableism. I don't believe it. I'm going to need to see agency actually gone in order to believe that. It's absolutely crazy. She owns the place and still owed so much money. Yeah. Yeah, which is why whenever we have our real estate shows, I always suggest to you that at some point you want to start paying these properties off. I know the BRRRR strategy, which stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. Yeah, BRRRR. I know that that is a famous strategy, but at some point, from everything that I've seen, every landlord that I've spoken with, every success story and non-success story I've seen, at some point you want to pay off these properties so that when you get to retirement age, you can actually chill and not worry about having a mortgage on these properties. So many people stop paying their rent. It is sad on both sides. Okay, ladies, I got one more thing to show you. Everybody like the video, please like the video as you all are coming in. Last topic I want to talk about is abortion. I don't like abortion, but I think that having federal abortion rights is important, especially for the safety and security of Black women. But I wanted to show you a really quick video that I came across to talk about the consequences of voting and not voting. And I am going to say, as somebody who is conservative, that, you know, the Republicans are really, really pushing this pro-life thing, and they're doing it to the detriment of all sorts of women. So let's hear what this woman has to say about what's happening in Tennessee and abortion.
If you want to know how bad the state of abortion rights is right now, please consider that in Tennessee right now, state lawmakers are arguing back and forth with the state's biggest anti-abortion organization, Tennessee Right to Life, over whether hemorrhaging is an objective medical reason to give a woman a life-saving abortion. Right now, Tennessee does not have an exception for women's lives in their abortion ban. Republicans know it makes them look really, really bad, and they're nervous about what that's going to mean for them in the next election. And so they're pushing for a life exception, which Tennessee Right to Life and like big national organizations also oppose. They oppose an exception for women's lives. And specifically, what they oppose is the idea that a doctor's subjective decision could be whether a woman gets a life-saving abortion or not. And so in an article today, the representative that is like proposing the bill for an exception was talking about this conflict with Tennessee Right to Life and was talking about this objective versus subjective decision-making around life-saving abortions. And she said something to the effect of, and the actual quote is in my newsletter, of, if a woman is hemorrhaging, a doctor needs to do what they have to do, right? Like, it's sort of hard to be objective. You need to do what you have to do. And says, Right to Life, Tennessee Right to Life wants to run diagnostic testing. They want there to be diagnostic testing in a case like that. They don't want a doctor just to be able to use their best medical judgment and say, it's time. They want there to be like specific benchmarks. And so all I keep thinking about is, how much blood does a woman need to lose for Tennessee Right to Life to believe that her doctor can legally give her an abortion?
I'm going to say one thing. I'm going to let this woman finish. But you see this woman on the screen? This is a white woman here. Whatever amount of blood they think she needs to lose, we as Black women are going to need to lose twice as much. I said it. I'm standing by it. Whatever amount of blood this group in Tennessee thinks that this woman on the screen needs to lose, you as a Black woman are going to have to lose twice as much. I'm not against voting Republican. I think the Republicans have certain things that they are offering that will help Black people, but this ain't it. This ain't it. Let's keep going.
Like, what's the number? What's the amount? Because that's what they're saying. They're saying that doctors can't use their knowledge. They can't use their decision making. They can't use their opinion. It's lawmakers and organizations like this that get to decide just how much blood you lose before you get a life-saving abortion. It is barbaric. Like, that is where we're at. This is barbarism. You can read more about it at my newsletter. Tennessee Lookout also has the story. Please just make sure you're reading about abortion every day. This is insanity.
Okay. I saw that. I'm not of age of having children anymore, thank goodness. If you were a young woman, I've said this before, trying to be as cautious with my words as possible, but make sure that you have your money in place. Don't depend on a man. I don't care how high value you think he is. Do not depend on a man. If you are engaging in sexual activity that can lead to a baby, please have your own money to have things taken care of. If you want to have the child, then making sure you have the money to go from one state to another for medical support if you need to. These people are not playing. These people are not playing here when it comes to this pro-life. And my prediction still stands. If the Republicans at some point in the future get the presidency, the Senate, and the House, if they get all three chambers, the next thing that they're going to do is reverse Roe v. Wade nationwide. I bet money on it. I will bet money on it. Beulah saying consequences for not voting is awful. If you want a family, don't get pregnant in areas with these draconian laws. Unneeded loss of a mother's life in pregnancy needs to stay in the 1800s. Look, there's going to be a committee that says if you don't lose enough blood, hemorrhaging. Hey, Selfish Love, hello. Hemorrhaging? Is this what we're talking about? I thought when we were voting again, for pro-life, it was just, hey, we need to stop some of these abortions for women who are getting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. I didn't realize we were voting on whether a woman should hemorrhage to death. I mean, come on now. Pro-lifers community has not showed up yet. Guess you're staying in New Jersey. You might want to if you plan on having children. What's funny to me is that they would rather make all these draconian laws to control women's choice than common sense things, better maternal leave, subsidized daycare, quality medical system. I said that, and I also said that once the child gets here, they don't want to give you food stamps. They don't want to help you with any kind of food. They're going to balk at giving you any kind of Medicaid, and you can't get Section 8 for housing. I mean, if you do not have your money together before you are birthing these kids, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell you. I certainly wouldn't do it. The adoption center is full of kids needing adoption. Certainly, yeah, certainly is. Hey, Mocha Mommy, saying amen. Quality schools, better distribution of economic wealth systematically. They're not doing that. So, kids in foster care are direct feeders to the prison system. Yes, they are. They get abused, they get violated. I know, there are certain people on here that's like, oh, we can feature one person who was adopted and they're a success story, but then you're not counting the other 99 who are physically touched, who are mentally abused, who are bounced around, who end up in the prison system. It's awful. Unfortunately, the USA is not a people-centered country, not anymore. New Jersey can have her issues, but hey, it could be so much worse. It could be. Alrighty then. Also, the trafficking. Yes, you're right. The black organ. I'm going to do a show one day on the organ harvesting and the black market with that. It's bad. It's bad, ladies. So with that is the end of our broadcast for today. I want to thank Mokomami for coming up. If you did not hear my stance on the extreme divestment, please go back and listen to that. That is at the very beginning of the broadcast. I want you to know my exact thoughts on that as upwardly mobile Black women. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back tomorrow for Small Business Saturday. Take care, ladies. Don't forget to like the video on your way out.